Hello, everyone. Welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Wednesday, December 27th, 2023. It is our New Year's Week edition of shows. We're only doing a pair of them with a couple of your old favorites. You know, both Devin O'Reilly and Fletcher Sharp have been with us for among the longest of the team. And with us today, Fletcher Sharp, because you know what? It is the best of times in Detroit sports, and it is the worst of times, and I will fully admit to doing a dance after that interception by the Lions the other day, because, man, it feels good to have a division title for the first time in more than 30 years. There's a huge chunk of our audience, Fletcher Sharp, that has never seen this before.
Number one, hats off to them. That's a great thing. And I'll admit, at the beginning of the season, I thought they would make the playoffs. Did not know if they would win the division or not. The division was up for the taking. I didn't think that it'd be out of reach entirely. Was a little thinking pie in the sky because the Lions have definitely let everyone down before when they've had chances to be good. So congrats to them for actually going through. Congrats to Dan Campbell for motivating this team to get there. And honestly, at the end of the game, he did something that I thought was like a really good showing of the mark of a great coach and an even better person. He got all of the players who've been with the Lions for the longest, like Taylor Decker, who's been a part of the Lions when they've been terrible, like absolutely awful. Like he was the best player on the team as a tackle. He got all these players on there to go, and he had the players clap for them. It's like, these are the people who were here the longest, who had to go through the grime and the awful part to get to this sweet part here. And like, you see how much it meant to those players. After the game, Taylor Decker was crying. It wasn't crying like, you know, like, oh my, but it was the fact that like, I've been in this organization. We've been through how this team is terrible. We've been through multiple 10-plus loss seasons, and now we're finally here as one of the best teams in the league, tied for the number one seed, but due to tiebreakers sitting third, and they would need some help to maybe be the number one overall seed. But like, they've clinched a home playoff game, and I'm trying to rack my brain for the last home playoff game, if I was even alive for that. If I was, I don't know if I was forming sentences.
To give you an idea, some of the things that happened in 1993, Coleman Young announced his retirement as mayor of Detroit. Like, think about how long ago that was. Let's see, Bill Laimbeer retired. Dennis Rodman was traded by the Pistons. It was Chris Webber's illegal timeout, like for the Fab Five. Michigan defeated Washington in the Rose Bowl. Scotty Bowman got, like, think about this. Like, these are things that if you'd say that to some people today, they wouldn't even know what you're talking about.
So I was alive when Coleman Young was the mayor, but I have no memory of him being the mayor at all. My mayor is Dennis Archer. I know Coleman Young was like the mayor of the city when I was alive, but I have no memory at all. So when people say the old mayor, my first thought is always Dennis Archer. Always, because also he was my T-ball coach. We were not a good team, but I have a picture with him instructing me how to hit a ball. And my dad's like, you should frame it. And I'm like, I don't think I should do that.
You know, one of my relatives was a suburban mayor. He's passed on, but somewhere his kids have, I don't know if it's the cufflinks or something that have HMFIC on them from Coleman Young. This is a thing I have not seen, but this is according to them out in some other state or something. It's something that would be interesting to get a hold of. But yeah, it is interesting because I do remember that it's that difference of those 10 years.
Like you said, if people now, like my brother who is, my brother's 21. He has no recollection of the Lions ever being good. He lives in Ohio. Mention Detroit Lions, and he's like, they suck. You show him clips of Barry Sanders, and he's like, why is the video all grainy? Trying to make me feel old. But like, these people who started following the Lions in more recent years, like, they only know them as like an up and coming team. They don't know the pain that people have like been through. Like you said, you let out a yell of excitement. There are people who legit felt their hearts swell because they couldn't believe it. And to a degree, even though I watched the ball get intercepted, I watched him get down just to get tagged and have the play, I was still like, all right, how are they going to blow it on this victories formation? Like, are they going to go to kneel and Goff's going to trip and the ball's going to fly up into the air and bounce off everyone's helmet and find its way into Harrison Smith's arms in the end zone? Like, what's going to happen until there's 3 zeros on the thing? Like, they're going to find a way to lose this game. And this is, not to take away from them winning. They're playing against a third string quarterback who threw 4 interceptions, but like almost threw for 400 yards. That's super concerning because Nick Mullins, his nickname used to be? Pick Mullins, because he just threw interceptions all the time. He was Pick Mullins. So, like, you let that guy carve you up. What's Jalen Hurts going to do? Like,
but let's focus on the reality that every good team has weaknesses. And I think we have to speak this because it's true. The Lions are a good team. I don't want to take any of that away from them. And I think a lot of Lions fans and a lot of Lions watchers have this habit of going to the negative. And you're absolutely right. Like, there were moments during that game where I was like, what is going on with this defense? And I fully understand that.
There should never be a time when you look up and say, oh, 3rd and 19. Yeah, they're going to get a first down. There should never be a moment ever. I know a lot of Lions fans have like the same old Lions mentality. I've been trying my best to not think about that, but I was on a nature walk with my partner. We were walking through the suburbs in a nature walk, and I was watching the game on my phone. And I was like, oh, what is it? 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. They might make it a stop. What's next? 3rd and 15. Oh, they're going to convert this. And lo and behold, bro, like, why do I feel more anxiety about like a four when it's 3rd and like forever? Like, that's when it's like, definitely you're going to get the stop. It's okay. The anxiety should be when it's like 3rd and 4. Like, that's when it's like, well, maybe they pick up a 5-yard play, which is hard, but it shouldn't be like 4th and 95 and they get a 97-yard pass or like that should never happen. But with the Lions, it seems to happen all the time in really awful, critical situations. And while you want to soak and bask in the victory and bask in the banner they're going to put up because they've definitely earned it, those little moments make you just go,
This is part of the evolution of a fan base where in this offseason, and we'll see how they do. Look, things could come together in different ways. Playoff runs have an amazing way of making people do things a little bit differently. But this is an off-season discussion to an extent of, all right, what are we going to do to shore up that defense? We don't want to go backwards, but I feel like that's the kind of discussion that a great sports town and a good sports team deserves. And Detroit is a great sports town that has been long suffering. And we'll talk about the Pistons in a minute because there is continued suffering there. But I kind of want to bask in this glory a little bit. I get it. It's going to be tough. I get that getting to the second seed is going to require us doing a lot of work. First seed is only if San Francisco screws up. But considering where we were 2 years ago, to be part of this conversation, to have a lively debate of like, okay, what do we need to do on defense or who do we need to pick up or whatever, that is a great place to be,
Oh, definitely. 2 years ago, when they brought in Dan Campbell, I was like, yo.
You were skeptical as hell.
Yo, this guy, no, like he's basically Matt Patricia, but smiley. Like he wants to come in biting kneecaps and he wants to do these things to like get people excited, but like he has no idea what they're supposed to be doing. And he wants to go for it on 4th down almost every time just to get people invested and really excited. That's great and all, but like they're not converting. So what's the point? And then last year, it's like we're running gadget plays during actual playtime. Like, oh, brother, like my motto is if you're running gadget plays like that, like as part of your actual offense, you think you're going to lose. Like if you're running a flea flicker on like 2nd and 4, like you have no hope of winning that game. You're just trying to do something to shake people up. Because if you really think you can win, you go out there, put your players on there, you smack them around and go about. But it started to turn around. They started getting, more risky stuff, putting pressure on teams to make teams make mistakes. And I'm like, oh, there's a little bit of a turnaround. At the end of last year, I was like, well, we will see. Because there's some hope there, but the Lions have had hope at the end of seasons before. And then the next season they open up, they lose 5 straight games after winning the preseason. And then the hope is dashed. But this year they came out and said, you know what? We got the Kansas City Chiefs, smacked around the defending champions, came out, lost a close game to Seattle, which they should have won, but had a few lining type mistakes. And they just came out and had a great year. Of course, you want to nitpick on stuff. Like you'd like them to beat good teams as opposed to just beating, the bad ones and losing to the good ones, but like they're making strides to actually show that they are a legit force in the league. Before, when the Lions at the beginning of the season, people are like the Lions one of the better teams in the league, and people snickered. Now you say that and it's like, well,
all right. So as a leader, I believe that attitude really matters. I think how you carry yourself and what you think about is a big part of getting something done. I've always appreciated that about Dan. What did you get wrong about Dan Campbell? Because this is not how you expect this to come out.
Well, he didn't necessarily have a full plan. I got wrong that the players would not buy in. I thought that given that his schemes seemed like he was a player's coach, but his schemes did not really seem all the way fully fleshed out at times. I thought people would be like, he's just someone who's going rah, rah, whatever in my face, but there's no substance underneath this. But players saw the enthusiasm. Players saw how much he cared, and because he's a former player, played with the Lions for a few years, played for the Saints, won a Super Bowl with Drew Brees.
Wasn't he on the 0-16 team or something like that?
No, he was close though. He was around that time. I thought they're going to see this guy and be like, dang, like we got someone who doesn't necessarily know what they're talking about. He's full of, got fire in his belly. Again, biting kneecaps. He wants to, get knocked down, get back up, bloody nose, whatever. But like players are like, yo, this isn't college. This is not high school. This is our jobs, like whatever. But players bought in. Penei Sewell, who's like a very scary man. He's super intense. It's great to have him on your side, but if you had to be a defensive tackle, oh my God, I do not want to be across from that man at all. He bought in. And when you get the most intense guy in your locker room to buy into what you're saying, everyone else falls in line immediately. And you saw the energy change. He was the anti-Matt Patricia in a way. Matt Patricia pushed away some of the Lions' best players because he wanted them to have an old Patriots mindset. He wanted them to, no flash, no whatever. Dan Campbell said, if you are out there playing great, get a turnover chain, get the turnover mask. I don't care. As long as you're playing well and it's not going to affect the way you play, go do that stuff. And players saw that and said, ooh, I want to go there. I want to play there because they have a coach who, if I'm playing well, will let me do whatever I need to do to keep playing well. Again, I bring it back up because it's super ridiculous. The second game they lost to Seattle, they had the blue ski masks out. They put a blue ski mask on the big boy statue. Do you know how insane that is? Like, one, how big is that mask? But two, like, what? They had Keegan-Michael Key at the field in a blue ski mask. That's nuts. They had Tim Robinson and Sam Richardson. Blue ski masks. That's insane. Like, they have these people who you would not associate this. It was infectious to where, like, the town bought in. And when the town bought in and the players realized the town it was symbiotic of like, oh, wow. And I did not expect that from Dan Campbell's first season because he felt energetic, but it just felt like the schemes weren't there. But he shored up some things, still a little risky at times, but shored up some parts. Defense is a little shaky at times. Offense is a little tepid at times, but he's overall figured out the things to get the best out of his players. He got a resurgence from Jared Goff. He's getting the most of the running game. The defense, when it is good, is very good. I didn't think he could energize them by just being the guy he is, but the players bought in. And I was skeptical of that because the last coach they had for his system to buy in, they did not buy in at all and they fell apart. So to see them buy in so much, I'll admit I was wrong on him, but I'm sure a lot of people were. I'm sure people wanted some stuff to be great, but maybe they didn't know it'd be this great, this quickly. But I'll admit, definitely, like, yeah, I thought this at the end of this year, they'd be like, hey, man, don't come back for year 4.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next few weeks. I know some Lions fans are a little frustrated because of the ticket prices, and I hear them because they're up there. On the other hand, I did a little bit of research, and I'm like, this is kind of where the NFL is at right now. And I've got a solution around this that maybe football fans might not like, but I want to hear what your thoughts are because I've seen a lot of the stuff with the playoff tickets, but that fans are mad.
I feel for them. I really do, because when teams are good, people want to go watch them. And of course, if your team is not 3-13, but 11-5, 11-4, 12-4, you want to go watch them play. And if they end their season and have another season coming up, you're like, all right, dope. Like they're going to be good next year potentially as well. The downside is the teams realize that and they're like, you want to come watch us play? Last year was 50. This year it's 85. Or if they're really good, this year it's 110. And the problem is now your team is good. So if you don't pay that money, someone else will.
Well, there's even a waiting list for the first time since 94. It's the first time there's been a waiting list.
And with Ford Field being as small as it is, like in the bottom 5 stadiums in the entire NFL, like if you don't pay for that ticket, you might not get a ticket. Like that just might be it for you. If you want to pay for standing room, which I saw some standing room prices for this potential home playoff game, like $500 to stand. If you had told any of the Fords that like 5 years ago, they would have laughed and hung up the phone or slammed whatever vehicle thing you were using to talk to them. They would have closed that channel immediately. That's the downside. When your team is good, stuff costs more money because they know that there's a demand. And if you won't meet it, someone else will.
So I was looking online around the league. These prices are kind of similar. When you look at the playoffs last year, there were a bunch of teams like 420, 450, 500 for average ticket prices for the playoffs, with some going into the thousands. I think football, it's harder to do at Ford Field because it's a smaller stadium, but I think football should take a page from the other football, soccer, and there should be some sort of supporters group pricing for a section, but the deal is you can't resell that ticket. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see something where it's like, we're going to keep a section of seats for the long timers or whatever. Kind of like take that idea from soccer, put it in, because it's a good idea. Because supporters tickets at a lot of stadiums are cheaper. They're not always the best tickets, but they're less expensive, and they're for the people who have been with the club for a long time. And I think that that would be something that the NFL should take from soccer, because I think it's a good thing and helps, reward the community. Because those tickets, I hear you, it is the price. It is common to what the NFL is, because the NFL is really about printing money. You only get so many games to do it. But I think that's an idea that they could take and run with. I know it's harder at Ford Field. It's only 65,000 seats. You've got other stadiums in the league that are 70, 80,000, and that's part of what's driving up those prices. But I would love to see something like that move over to football.
Definitely. The only thing I would hate to see about that are the cringy supporting group names they're going to put. I can already feel they're going to be some of like the most cringy
The
names.
paper bag crew for all the people who used to wear paper bags on their heads.
Like I know the Vikings are going to just be something Nordic that's just dumb. I know the Packers are going to be something with cheese. I know the Bears are going to be something about Cubs. The Falcons about like the bird's nest. And it's like, oh my God.
I'm all about it. Bring it on, Fletcher. Bring it on. Let's bring in the cheese.
Cheesy. But like, I think that's a really great idea. It'll allow people who've been fans for a while who want to get their kids involved. Like, hey, I want you to be a fan of this team with me. Come to this game with me. Come do this and this. And it keeps the fan base cyclical. It's why in sports like soccer, you see so many families are fans of a team for so long. It's because they have their season tickets, their supporters, they go through stuff together, and now they have a kid, and the kid gets the tickets, and the kids go through that, and they have a kid, and they have a kid, and those tickets stay within the family. Whereas, you're not on SeatGeek trying to hawk tickets at the last minute that have been upcharged 300% because, that's what SeatGeek can do sometimes. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. I don't see it ever happening because it means that the NFL makes less money, and they're not good with any idea that makes them less money.
Let's talk about the worst of times in Detroit sports for a minute. I don't want to dwell here because I want to get into some predictions. But the Pistons, man, like to see it happen, I was making that point about leadership and Dan Campbell and everything else. You look at the faces of those Pistons players and that bench, it looks like that they have been broken by a steel beam right through their mid. Like it is not a good situation. It looks horrible. Those players look defeated, and when your spirit's broken, that's the hardest thing about coming back.
I'll admit, I've been covering the Pistons all season, but I have not sat and watched a full game. Like, I've watched the first quarter. I had to do something, so I watched part of the second, came back to the third. And then when I see that the third quarter is like, oh, there's a lead of 15 coming out of the third, that game's over. They're not coming back. I watch how they ended that quarter. They don't look like they want to keep fighting. That game's over. If third quarter is close, I'll watch most of the fourth. The lead gets back to 15 again, it's over. The Utah Jazz game was a game I had circled saying if they don't beat the Jazz, they're going to break that record. The Jazz made it easy. Lauri Markkanen, out. Jordan Clarkson, out. Most of their star players, out. Pistons had their full roster of players, save for Jalen Duren, and they lost to a bunch of backups and like one starter. Cade Cunningham did all he could. All he could. After the game, walking off the court, you could see in his face he was trying to hold back tears, and I felt so bad for him. Like, obviously, they're professional players. They get paid to play a game. But you can tell, like, that was the one they realized, like, if we don't win this game, we're going in the record books. The game was close. It was so close. And then all of a sudden, like most of the other games, they make one or two bad plays. The Jazz capitalize, and you look up, and it's like, dang, we were up by 3, and now we're down by 8. And then now we're down by 15, and now we're down by 9. But there's only like 94 seconds left. And then it's like, now we're in the fouling game. And it's like you said, when your spirit is broken, it's hard to stay connected. And you start saying somewhat irrational things like Cade Cunningham. Like I feel bad, but during that press conference, he's like, we're not a 2-26 team. We're not that bad. Bro.
You're that bad.
Bro,
have you watched the tape, sir?
I know you guys watch film. Like, you've seen the mistakes you're making. Like, you guys are that bad. And honestly, like I said, they didn't win that game against the Jazz, which would have been, their 25th loss. The next winnable game comes middle of January against the San Antonio Spurs, who are almost equally as bad. Unfortunately, by the time they reach that point, they will be probably 2-34. And you know what the biggest kicker would be? They had this really, really poor record, and they don't get the number 1 overall draft pick. Do you know how much that would be terrible?
So bad.
You have this poor record and you get the 4th overall draft pick like that. Oh man, and again, I keep saying this, and like the worst part about this team is that they're not tanking. The 76ers, who hold the record for the longest losing streak, that team was a tanking team. Like Daryl Morey, their GM, was like, "Oh, we're trying," and he would start players that were like on G League contracts for like 10 games, like, "But we're trying to win," and it's like, "Oh, Joel Embiid's out with an injury. He could come back and play. Hey, Joel, why don't you sit for another 30 games?" Like they were holding players out to like maintain that they had, a bad record to get number one draft picks over and over and over and over again until they finally got it right. The Pistons aren't doing that. The Pistons are playing their young players who are supposed to be their cornerstones, and they're just losing. They're losing with youthful mistakes and not tracking back and hoping to get a foul call, not getting it, and looking at the ref and not, looking at your man, or dumb reach-in fouls or bad passes that result in turnover. Like they're just really dumb, youthful mistakes. It's something I won't say I expected. It was something that was in the back of my mind. You've played a sport before. When you play a position that you're used to playing and they put you somewhere else, you do something different, there's some growing pains. A lot of the guys in the Pistons, Cade Cunningham, doesn't really affect him as much, but Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson, these guys were like on their other teams, they were the number one guy. They were the ball goes to me late in the game. I will score the winning bucket. And now they're like, hey, can you go stand over here and then maybe touch the ball a bit less and figure out what you're going to be doing? And with Asar, it's a bit easier because his game kind of translates into that. But like other players need the ball a bit more and like they don't have that opportunity. So you got some players who hold into the ball a bit longer because they think this is my time to shine for a minute. And really, it's not. It's not your time to shine at all. But they're still learning exactly how they need to do things. And Monty Williams, you can't fire him because the contract you gave him is a huge poison pill. Like you fire him and he owns the Pistons. The Pistons are now the Detroit Monty Williams at that point. Whatever he's telling them, he should be telling him the opposite because what he's been telling him has not been working at all, at all. And I know a lot of the fans jumped on Tom Gores to say something. And I said before, you can rewind it. I don't think he really should because it's not going to fix anything. It's not going to satiate anything at all. Maybe he should say something about we're not doing great, but the things people want to hear him say, he will not say. And he went and said something to the public and it was not what people wanted to hear. People were like, well, he's not saying that. Like he could have just said nothing and kept the same amount of vitriol and not have his quotes put out there out of context to make it seem like he doesn't actually care as much. It's frustrating. It's sad. Some people were joking, like, in order for the Lions to be good, we had to sacrifice the Pistons, which really feels like it, honestly. It's really sad to see because, again, like, if they were tanking, I'd be furious because I hate tanking. I think tanking is such a weak way to build your team. It's let's be bad for 7 years, get some players and hope we're good. No, try to win games. Don't do that. That's so cheating the system. It's like when people try to flop for fouls. I hate that. It's part of the game, but, like, it's a gross part of the game. Don't do that. But they're trying to win these games. You see them at the end of they're trying so hard to win these games. They're not faking those tears afterwards. They look like they saw a bunch of ghosts walking off the court after every game. And the worst part is they're definitely going to break that streak, and they might just build it with a few more games. I don't see a game in their schedule that they can win at the rate they're going right now. And honestly, the rate they're playing right now, even when they meet the Spurs, who have one more win than them, I don't see them beating the Spurs. It's bad. Like I don't think they're going to go 2-80. I really hope they don't go 2-80. If they go 2-80, the team has to go back to Fort Wayne. Like they can't stay in Detroit anymore. I'm not one to move the team, but like you cannot have that record and still be an NBA team. Like no, the G League team is now the NBA team if that's the case because like they can do the same exact thing for way less money. You can't do that. If they're going to figure it out to like at least get double-digit wins this season, but like not by much. I don't know how they fix it. But they got to fix it because it's real depressing looking at LCA and watching the fans pick their nose with more interest in watching the game.
Well, here's the thing. Tom Gores did say some things about the community and fans are upset and saying sell the team. I can say this. The Fords proved that all you got to do is win and everybody forgets about selling the team. Because you and I both remember all those chants. You and I've talked about them on this show some years ago. All you got to do is win some games and everybody's going to forget about it.
That's literally what I said on the show almost verbatim. When Sheila took over and then I was like, yeah, she's not going to be on the offensive line, blocking. She's not going to be the one throwing these passes. She's not doing all this stuff. But if they win games, people will call her Sheila Hamp and not Sheila Ford Hamp. They win games and, we're whatever. They lose games, it's Sheila Ford. They'll hit that Ford really hard. But you win games and people don't listen to that. That's what has to happen. The Pistons have to stop holding leads going into the third quarter and then losing leads at the end of it by double digits. They have to find a way to win a game. They can win one game. And while Tom Gores won't be off the hot seat, people will be like, okay, streak's over. Now we can resume watching. It's bad when like NBA Twitter and NBA threads are all like, we're all Pistons fans tonight. Like, oh no.
Let's end the show with a 2024 prediction in your world, Fletcher Sharp. I've got one, but you go first.
I have two, actually.
Oh.
My first is way more recent, and I'm hoping I'm not jinxing it. The Lions will give up 400 total yards in their home playoff game, but find a way to win.
Oh, I love it.
But they're going to get gashed. They're going to get gashed something fierce, but they're going to find a way to hold on and win that game. So that's number one. Number two, and this is one that is definitely a hot take. I think the combined record for April for Detroit sports teams is going to be above 500.
Okay.
April in the D is going to be above 500. That's my super hot take. It's been a minute since April in the D has been a positive April in the D for all the Detroit teams. Maybe it's good for one, but like the other two is bad. So we're going to sit here and I'm going to put all 10 toes down and say that come next April, when you add up all the records for that 1 month, it's going to be a positive one and not a negative one.
You know, I have talked to a number of people who feel real strongly that April in the D is going to be a good time for Detroit. And, you know, the business owners, we had the folks from Firebird Tavern on. They're excited about April in the D. I mean, it was a real big thing for years. Like, people got pumped about it. So I'm on board with that one, Fletcher Sharp. My prediction kind of ties in, and a strong April in the D would be good for my prediction. My prediction, Tigers division champions. Why? Leadership, these points about Dan Campbell or whatever. Look, I have my skepticisms and all that other stuff, but I am going to go in and say that the wins are favorable between the teams we're playing and the buildup we can do, because here's the deal. I think that Miggy leaving gives us an opportunity to refresh up that lineup a little bit. You know, I love Miggy, but I think that, you know, it's time that we can really bring in some players to shore up that offense. I think that the Tigers are going to be fun to watch this year, and I think that we are truly going to be in that division hunt, and I'm going to put down for a 500 record. That's what I'm going to say. Big year for the Tigers as a step forward. I'm not saying they're going to win the World Series. I'm saying 500 and a division title.
And you really hope those winds that are blowing in their favor are winds blowing in, you know, from the lake and not from Javier Baez swinging at a pitch that's like 5 feet outside.
Do we just need to send him out?
I don't know, but like, honestly, they can send him out to Holland and he can help power the state with the way he's swinging at stuff.
Fletcher, Happy New Year. Thank you for spending today with us. And thank you for spending this year. This has been quite a year in Detroit sports. There's been ups, there's been downs, but I don't think there's anyone else I'd rather spend it with, Fletcher Sharp. It's so good to talk with you.
Likewise, and honestly, I'm surprised people haven't been writing in calling for me to be kicked off. Like, we don't want to hear him. So the fact that people actually hear my points and might not agree with them, but still really want me to say them, you know, it's heartwarming a little bit. So I'm glad that, you know, people want me to stay around, because that's being wanted is always, you know, a good thing.
And hey, 20% of every show is hate listens.
And you know what? Like, if you hate me that much to listen, I'll take that. Like, that's fine with me.
With that, I am Jer Stays. One more episode coming to you this new year. Me and Devin O'Reilly are going to have some end-of-year predictions, have some fun around the virtual fire. For now, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharp.
Thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around town.